NGI helped, I guess, spark a communication between my son Luke and myself about the business and about the transition. And it's not that we weren't talking about it before, but boy, that really focused the conversation. It helped Luke develop an awareness, maybe mild terror, of how challenging it can be to be the CEO and the owner and all the hats that I wear. Membership at NGI also, in going through that process, helped bring my wife kind of into the picture. She hears me talk about work at night, and she knows my son and she knows me, and by being part of that, she was able to bring some really good insights to our business and kind of help us think about things we hadn't thought of. Kind of tangential maybe to the day-to-day operation of the business, but very important. I've always told my kids they don't have to make every mistake. Other people have made mistakes ahead of them and they can learn from those. And at the Gehring Center, they presented a lot of anecdotes and individuals to give us perspective on some of the really big mistakes that can be made in a business transition that kind of act as maybe a lighthouse or a warning beacon. Don't do this. I think that was very valuable. NGI pulls you out of your business 8 times for a half a day each time, and you just focus on your business and your transition without the distractions of the day-to-day. And otherwise, if you don't do that, I don't think you are really going to work on your business or your transition. So that forum, pulling you out and gathering you together with like-minded individuals, I think is kind of the key component of NGI.
Welcome to the Next Generation Institute Overview. We're so excited to have you here. I'm Carol Butler, the president of the Gehring Center, and it's a true honor to be able to share with you the ideas around the Next Generation Institute and gosh, what's in front of you possibly? So I wanted to just remind you of what the Gehring Center mission is. It's all about nurture and educate family and private businesses to drive a vibrant economy. And so that's a key thing for us. We're all about education and all about helping you learn more and understand better the possibilities of what it would take to transition a business and do it successfully. Well, the NGI program, let me just go back for just a moment. Let me tell you a little bit more about the history. NGI, we've been doing this for a long time, and we've just finished the 2021 season, which was a completely virtual program. And we have always been updating, evolving, changing, listening to your comments, and doing things to make it more valuable, more impactful, more meaningful. And, you know, we've had the opportunity in 2021 to have a completely virtual program. We've learned a lot from that experience, and we're going to share more about what 2022 is going to look like. But we started with a very basic program. At first, it was only the second generation, and you'll hear me say G2s, that's the second generation, the up-and-coming leaders. And then eventually we learned that it would be really helpful to have the first generation in the room as well. We only let them sit in the back of the room. We didn't want them too involved. And then eventually we realized bringing them to the table and having the whole family at the table was really an important dynamic. Also gave us the opportunity to break out in generational groups, have different kinds of conversations, more meaningful, more impactful, sometimes more challenging, but it was a game changer for that first step forward in evolving the program. So that's what we're continuously doing. We're working hard to reimagine, and we've added a lot of things in the 2022 program to be able to be current, relevant, and impactful for you. So this is going to be more versatile. We're going to be hybrid. We've got new speakers. We've got some of our best speakers that have come back as well, and it's a nice blend. We like to think we've grown older maybe, but certainly wiser, and want to be able to provide to you something that's even more rich, impactful, and life-changing are some of the words that come to mind. So let me tell you a little bit more, but before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors. We recently watched a video of John Gehring as a reminder. John passed away in February this year after a wonderful 87-year life, but we captured him on video, and we were able to replay his pillars of why he brought the Gehring Center to the forefront and why the idea was even born. And it was a great reminder for our team, and that was the audience for the video this time, to remember what it is we're all about. And one of the things that he felt strongly about was to have an affordable program so that money was not the barrier for people to be able to get in. To do that, we have wonderful corporate sponsors who help us keep the price of our programs to be very effective and more affordable to you. And so that's why we always like to thank our sponsors, and they're a very significant part of our vibrant community. So today we have with us, we have Mike Elligear of PNC Bank, and Mike is also going to be one of our moderators in the breakout. For more than 160 years, PNC Bank has been part of our community, committed to supporting their customers, communities, employees, and shareholders. At PNC Bank, what they say is we're proud of our long-standing history of building strong communities that create financial opportunities for individuals, families, and businesses. And we're delighted to have Mike with us. He's been a great volunteer, and I think you'll enjoy him if you're in the breakout group with him. We also have our friends from McGowan Brabender, and Brian Miller is with us today. McGowan Brabender is a privately held and boldly independent employee benefits broker that specializes in healthcare benefits, which is no easy area, as you might well guess if you ever had to do that work, claims management, employee engagement, and communication. They're also a multi-generational family business. They're based in Dayton with offices in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Indianapolis. They represent 1,400 clients, which equals over 250,000 members. Their comment: we are good, smart people effectively managing the entire healthcare dollar. Well, who doesn't need help with that? And our final sponsor today, we have Dan Barnett from Johnson Investment Counsel. Johnson Investment is one of the Ohio's largest wealth management firms. They're currently serving clients in 48 states. Through Johnson Wealth Management, Johnson Family Office Services, Johnson Trust Company, and Johnson Asset Management, the firm serves individuals, corporations, retirement plans, foundations, and endowments. It was many years ago, founder Tim Johnson, no surprise that's where the name came from, was one of John Garing's original funders. He sponsored John and the idea of the Garing Center with $10,000, and as we like to say, back in the day when $10,000 was really a big deal. But they have stayed with us and continue to be great supporters. Dan Barnett is actually our board chair for the Board of Advisors right now. So we're very grateful to have all these folks. This idea of starting an organization like the Garing Center and being able to support it was big for all these folks. I also want to do a little shout out to our friends here at KPG Creative. They are very generous and kind in supporting us and helping us with these great productions, these great programs, and they help make us look as good as possible. So I'm very kind to them all the time. So we're delighted to have Bob Kelly with us today. All right, so what are we going to do today? There's a new agenda here that has a lot of new things, and I have a couple notes here. It's like chat room, chat room, chat room. Whenever you have questions, please toss them in the chat room. Lisa's going to be monitoring that, so if anything hits you or if there's a technical issue or anything that you want us to be aware of, just toss it in the chat room and we'll pick that up. I also want to say, before we get into the agenda, there are a few acronyms that may come up and may slip on occasion. NGI will clearly get used for the Next Generation Institute. You'll hear me talk about G1s, which I've mentioned is that first generation, and those are the owners, founders, or whoever's in leadership today. The G2s, which are the up-and-coming group that's part of the organization as well. MAP, and G2s may be in the company and they may be out of the company. We're going to talk about MAP, was a membership alignment profile, and I think for now those are the main acronyms. Oh, and Professional Services Registry, I may say PSR. If you have any questions about any of those, please let us know, but we'll be talking about them more. All right, so what are we going to do today? What's our why? Well, we wanted to help create the idea of how does this connect our mission about nurture and drive to a vibrant economy and educate to really help you see the why part of what we're doing here. We're going to spend some time reviewing the program itself, all around Align, Discover, Empower, and Act. You're going to hear from a G1 and you're going to hear from a G2 about their own experience. These are some folks that were in our most recent program, and so what were some of the most important takeaways that they got out of the experience? We're going to talk about the format of the program. We'll go into detail a little bit later. We want to get you talking and engaged, hear what your thoughts are, what questions you might have, what's impacting you and what's not, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time sharing important details, and we'll open it up for questions at that point. Well, let's go into a little bit more history about NGI. And so we wanted to share some numbers. It's one thing to say we've been around for over 20 years, and a lot of us have been doing things for more than 20 years, I'd have to say. But in the 20 years plus that we've been running this institute, we've had over 260 families, 264 to be correct. And that has equated to over 702 graduates. So that's a lot of people that have been touched. Some of those families have gone forward with the transition quickly, some have delayed, some have even come back to a second time. So that's a magnitude of impact that really touches everything. We're all about trying to help you understand what it takes to be successful in a transition, clarify, gain consensus, and work through that. But you can see in our community, what I always like to say, that's a pretty good start. So we'll talk about how we do this around the 10 best practices, and we'll give you a little bit more detail on that. And then one of the nice things about when we transition a family and it stays in the family, it helps keep the business local, it keeps the jobs local, it keeps the contribution, excuse me, to the economy local as well. So this is all about helping to provide jobs, growth, and advancements in our community. So this is how it aligns to our mission, help keep it local, and help drive. Now, we are also hoping that we have people that may not be local, and we can have that impact outside of our market as well. So who are these families? I think this is a good depiction of who these families are, big and small, tall and short. They come from all kinds of places. They're folks like you, they're folks like me, they're folks like my family out in Maryland that are in business. Maybe they started with an idea and now it's blossomed into a family business. Maybe it was great-grandma or great-granddad or great-great-great that started the business. And so these families, whether they're in a manufacturing business, a service industry, at the root, the challenges are the same. We always talk about their business issues that you face, but there are also, as if that's not enough, family businesses have family dynamics on top of those business issues, and that's where we'll spend a lot of our time as well. I had a chance to watch David Kohler speak of Kohler, the plumbing people, right, the bathtubs, the sinks, and all those. So they're a multi-billion-dollar company. But what he was talking about was how he needed to sit down with his sisters, and when the time to transition to new leadership, who was going to take over and who was going to be the president. And I mean, the same kinds of conversations you probably have had around your kitchen table at some point in time. So it doesn't matter whether it's a billion, a million, or hundreds of thousands, we all have a lot of the same dynamics and a lot of the challenges. Now, some of these families you probably know, and some of them you may not. This one particularly is well known here in the Cincinnati community, our friends at Graders. And I always think about, when he says his comment, I can honestly say we might not be here if we hadn't gone through the Next Generation Institute and had the help of the Gehring Center. I stop and think, what would the world be like if we didn't have Grader's black raspberry chocolate chip ice cream? So we'd like to think we've had the impact on our culture and our universe in a big way just because of that. Well, who else are we talking about? Who shows up? We've had families like La Rosa's, we've had families like Scherzinger Pest Control, and we've had one family in not too distant past who's attended the program a second time, and that's Neil's Design and Remodel. They came, did their first transition, and then 20 years later came and did a second transition. And if all goes well, hopefully we'll be in business and we'll still be around when that third transition comes as well. All right, well, we talked a little bit about now how we do this, who, the family, and now some of the how. So we provide family guides for each family. And these are the folks, and they're also peer group facilitators. And some of these people are still with us. Some of these are presenters or family guides from the past. These are folks that have been owners or have been service providers. They've worked in family businesses. They've been family businesses. They've done consulting, or they've had some real up-close, in-person kind of experience. And I have to share, I came into the Gehring Center as a volunteer, as a family guide and a facilitator, and my experience was really built on my own family where I worked growing up and then have been going back actually this time of year to help them out. So they continue to give me lots of new stories, and these folks have these kinds of stories as well. So there's a wonderful wealth of experience and knowledge that will be at the table with you. Now, I do want to highlight, these people are here to guide you. They're helped to facilitate. They're here to help ask tough questions. They're not here to tell you what to do. They're here to help you understand what it is you really want to do and help make sure that that becomes a reality for you. So they're going to be steering more than anything. They want to help you have great conversations where you can create empathy. They want to help you get opened up. So if that quiet person is at the table, they're going to help draw you in. And if there's somebody who's talking a lot, guilty as charged, they're going to help moderate and monitor that as well. So these professionals will help shepherd through hard conversations. They'll really be supportive and be able to share stories, but again, they're here to help you understand what you want to do, not tell you what you should do. So they're really about asking hard questions rather than giving answers. They're a wonderful group of volunteers, and I want to highlight the Garion Center really operates on a tremendous number of volunteers, and as I talk about family guides and our presenters, these are all volunteers for this program. Again, it really aligns with John Garion's goal to keep everything affordable and keep costs down. So we talked a little bit about the guides. Now what about the presenters? Who are these people that are going to be coming and speaking to you? Well, I get the honor of being a presenter on some of the sessions, and you'll see me a lot. I get to open and close the sessions. But among this group of presenters, we have Josh Barron, for example, who's an adjunct professor at Columbia University. He teaches MBA classes on conflict management and closely held family and private businesses. We have people who are service providers in our industry. We have lawyers, we have accountants, we have people who have been through their own personal family transitions and will be sharing stories. We have a retiree from P&G who's got a bestseller book about retirement and what he learned and what he's learned more than anything from others. We have a person to talk about valuation and who's actually going to come from out of our market, out of Louisville. And so really a wide range, people who are in strategy, people who are in org design and coaching. So really a wealth of knowledge. And they're going to be talking about things across the spectrum that are key to how do you have a successful transition. Well, our guest speakers, as I mentioned, come from, so those are our presenters. On top of that, more volunteers, if you will, we have guest speakers, and our guest speakers are generally coming from families that have been through the Next Generation Institute. Our friends at Skyline Chili, Risk Source Clark Theaters, I mentioned Neil's Design and Remodel. You're going to hear a little bit more about Steinhauser here yet today. Junk King has learned a lot about contingency planning, so they know a lot about that as an experience, and Hyperquake as well. So these are people that are going to be able to bring real experience, real knowledge. They're going to share with you sometimes what went well and maybe what didn't go well. You'll hear also stories in my own family. I always ask you all to do a pinky swear with me because I'll tell you stories about my own family, but you have to pinky swear that if you ever meet them, you can't say what I said. I actually had to edit this morning because I think I was crossing the line. But we all have wonderful stories, families we know, families we've been with, families that have a tremendous amount of experience. Our guest speakers have rich stories, and some of them are really going to be heartfelt in a good way, and some are going to be also tough stories. And so we want to be able to use that as part of our training and our education as well. All right, well, we want to ask you a question at this point in time. So what's the real reason, and then the top reason, that family businesses do not transition ownership? So we're going to ask you to be able to take that poll. Is it lack of vision or mission? Is it inadequate preparation of the next generation? Is it a lack of communication and trust? Or is it that catch-all category of other? All right. Okay, great. All right, well, thanks for sharing that information. And as you might well guess, all of these things are issues. We might have set up the poll to have all the real things there. They're not all made-up ideas. So they all play a part without question, but let's talk really mostly about the role of communication and trust. And so most of you felt that, know that, experienced that. You've read the book, you've heard the speech, but that is such a strong theme, and it really can either make or break how that experience goes. And we had a company where the dad and the son had a lot of conversations about the future of the business. The son wanted to take over. They worked out all the legal agreements about how to transfer shares, when the dad retired, how that would happen, everything about how it would be bought out, all those things. But they never told the rest of the family. They never shared it with the other family members that were in the company as well. And so when this got opened up and it happened, guess what? A lack of trust was really built out of that. And it was a real hardship for the family and took a long time to recover. And sometimes we find families don't recover when they have that kind of breach of trust. In my own family, we had an experience where it was just a pure lack of communication and no malice intended by all means. And it took a little while for the trust to be rebuilt, just because it hadn't been shared. And so this is a big part of why we talk about the roundtables and even the generational breakouts. We want you to begin to practice what it means to build communication at a higher level with more respect and be able to open up even on the tough topics, and then that will build that foundation of trust. And sometimes, and you'll hear one of our presenters talk about this, one of the greatest ways to build trust is simply to listen. And that is a key part of this development as well. So if you have any concerns you want to throw in the chat box at this point, like what are the things in your family's business or that you've seen in other family businesses that could jeopardize trust, that could be right at the top, or just what are the concerns that you have? And Lisa can pick those up in the chat room, and if we need to address them, we certainly can. But you can really see with 60% of the weight on communication trust, we're going to spend a lot of time in this program helping to talk about what are great communication skills, how can we be more effective, management conflict, and you'll get to practice them in your group settings and have some wonderful dialogue. Well, we've referenced the 10 best practices, and let me just share a little bit what these are. You can see them on your screen, and they're everything from a business charter, and we're going to talk about family charters, to leadership development. And when we think about outside boards, and I could go on, but you can see them here. We're going to cover the majority of these in our work as we go across these 12 sessions, and we'll be incorporating why is that important, what's the best practice, and why does that matter. So these were assembled after many years of research. We use these all the time. We use these as criteria for the Family Business Awards that we just presented last Friday, Family and Private Business Awards. We use this criteria for leadership development and our Rising Leader Award. And so this is something that's really a foundational aspect to the Gehring Center. We want it to be foundational to you as well. And these are proven over and over again to be best practices. And actually, we're going to do our own check-in at the Gehring Center and see how we're doing against these practices as well. Every so often, like having a physical, it's good to do a little check-in and see how healthy you are. So we're going to ask you to be able to do that as well. So we'll be touching a lot of these. It'll be a launching pad for our work together, but it's part of our membership alignment profile that we're going to talk about here. And this is how the foundation's been built and the questions have been built for the membership alignment profile. That's that map thing I told you about. So the map was created, sorry, I think I'm a little trigger happy here today, was created to be able to help get an assessment of where you are. So what's going on in your business? What are the dynamics that are happening right now? We've taken those 10 best practices. They've been built into 39 statements that we are going to ask you, and you is defined by you. Is that your leadership team? Is that your entire employee base? We're going to ask you to take this assessment before you come to the Next Generation Institute. It will help you understand and see where some of your strengths are, where some of your opportunities are, and it'll be great from a conversational point of view to begin to understand where to put your focus. Now, we are asking you to take it ahead of time. We'll be there to facilitate the whole process. We'll work with you side by side. We'll do the debrief for you. We don't want you to be scared off by this. It's very user-friendly, very helpful, and we'll debrief with you. We can debrief with just the leader first, and then the whole group. You'll help us figure out how you want to do that. But it's really important to understand what the feedback is. We talked about listening just a moment ago, but it's really critical to get that kind of feedback. Sometimes we think we know what's going on in the organization, but we might be missing a high point and we might be missing a low point. So it's really wonderful to have in-time feedback. So we'll be able to give you the results, and if you're okay, we'd ask that you release those results to your family guide as well. It'll give them insight, and they'll be able to do a better job asking questions and helping to guide you through the process. Well, we want to keep you busy, and we want to help give you lots of feedback. So another piece of our equation for this institute, we'll take the time, and we'll have you do this offline, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So a lot of you might not know it by that name, but you hear a lot about extroverts and introverts. We'll have you do the assessment and then give you the feedback, so you get your reports. Again, it's up to you to share how much you want to give to your family or to your guides, but we'll take one of our sessions and we'll really dig in deep. My favorite part of this is when we talk about the extroverts and the introverts. And over again, even those two aspects of what this indicator can be helps with communication, helps understand how people work together or don't, how people react and respond. And so we'll go through all the facets of the Myers-Briggs. It's a fun program to be able to play with, and I hope you'll enjoy the session, but it's very insightful. I'm still chasing my brother to get him to do it, but I'm hopeful one day we will. In my family, I got my G3s to do this, and interestingly enough, they all came out with the same profile. There's a story behind that. We'll talk more about it in the session, and why that was a good thing and why that was an opportunity. So there's just a lot more in that we can share and we can talk about, but still it highlights about communication. Sometimes this will help you with something that's easy, something that's hard, but will give you the opportunity to communicate more effectively so you can get clear on what you want, which is the toughest question to answer, and where you want to go in the future. Now, we have another tool that we're working on right now. We talk about business valuation, but also to understand what's upstream from that, which is how do you drive company value? And this is, if you think about the G1 moving out of the business at one point in time, how does that drive value? What do the G2s need to understand about that? How do you build sustainability into your business? And this is just a nice summary indicator of how the business can be driven to be more successful, drive revenue, drive profits. We use the example, some companies have an overabundance of their market share with one company. In a city like Cincinnati, that could be maybe their main customer is P&G, and 80% of their business is with P&G. That's going to be a value detractor, for example. And so what would you do with that, right? This will help bring it to the surface and say, well, simply diversify. Well, sounds simple. It's not easy to do, but it helps set a path forward. This also gives the G2s an opportunity to see what's in front of them and take a look at what are their opportunities. Oftentimes, businesses, maybe mom, dad, or brother, sister, or partners started a business, and maybe it's only as two at the start. And we always say family businesses are when two or more related people are in ownership and key decision-making roles. But when that next generation comes in, maybe it's now siblings, but maybe it's also cousins. And as this cousin consortium and more families come forward and are dependent on the business, growing the value of the business becomes more important too. So maybe it started supporting one family, maybe now it's going to be supporting 3 families or 6 families or more. We had one company years ago, and their goal was to always make sure the business was large enough to support 6 families, because that's how many family members had come back in the business. That was an interesting way to set their true north. So this is going to be a great opportunity to look at how to lead efforts forward, how to address what needs to be addressed, and put that in the forefront of your priority planning, and to really be able to shift. In my own family's business years ago, when we were in high school, the G2s, my dad set it up to say, each one of you, if you want to do a project, that'll be great, we'll try it out, and if it works, we'll incorporate it into the business. Needless to say, some things probably got tried and didn't work out, but we did everything. Now, my family's in the agritainment business, pick your own fruits and vegetables, a retail market stand, but my one brother started a pumpkin field and really got into the pumpkin business, and then out of that was born a pumpkin festival. That was about 45 years ago. That has now become the single largest season of their business and the single largest contributor to company value. big impact, big opportunity, but we had to let us play a little bit and also be allowed to fail if that was the case. So, it's not about losing, it's about learning. So that's how we think about this value creation. All right, something new this year as well is the President's Book. And this is an exciting new part of the program. And when you think about the world today, right, there's so much information. We're connected in so many different ways. And if you're like me, you might have a file here. You might have something on your computer. You might have files saved in some ways that you can't quite remember exactly how you put them forward. But what we want to do is help you create a President's Book. And this was born out of one of our members and attendees. It's inspired by Tara Halpin, who's the CEO of Steinhauser. She's a guest speaker for us, but she comes and tells the story about just as she was taking over as president, learning that her father had cancer, and from that point forward, he was basically out of the business. So she put together this President's Book because when something happens like that, where do you go to for all the answers? Well, she goes to her President's Book. Happens to be red as well. And so think about putting your most important agreements. They might be contracts of business. They might be key contacts of your lawyers or your accountants or your banker. It might be passwords. It might be codes. It might be some non-compete agreements. Whatever it might be for you, we're going to take you through templates and at the end of each session ask you to fill those out, which will give you some actionable aspects of what goes in the President's Book and give you a real tangible tool to walk away with that's going to be meaningful for you. We think this is going to be a really powerful addition to what we're doing. It's an idea we've discussed for a while, and there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. So here we are, and we're excited that at the end of each session you'll be capturing these ideas, and so it doesn't get away from you. If you already have something like this, it'll also be an opportunity for you to share with others. So we're looking forward to launching this part of the program. All right, so what else about this session? One of our goals, and Larry Grip, who we mentioned is the President Emeritus, the former president, is on our call today, and I learned from him many years ago. We always use the phrase with our families, we meet you where you are. So if you're, advanced into where you are on the journey of transition, we meet you there. If you're at the very beginning of the transition idea or not even having conversations yet, we meet you there. And so we want to make sure that we're staying relevant and current, that we're connected with you through the process, and we really mean this because it's all about making sure we're as helpful as possible to you. So this could be around your own functionality, this could be about relationship health within the company, this could be about operational professionalism, and like I say, we have some companies that come in, they've done evaluation, they have a strategic plan, they're already thinking about a board of advisors, and we have some that don't have any of those tools. And so that's the balance of making sure that we help you begin at the beginning and get your way all the way through the process. So that's partly, again, what a family guide will help you work through. The other part of Meet You Where You Are is we recognize in the world today, meeting you where you are, just like today, none of you are here with me. In our old world, we'd all be in the same room together each and every time. We would have had breakfast by now and coffee. We'd be laughing and carrying on. We're going to do that via Zoom in this case, but we'll also be doing it in person 4 times during the session, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But we recognize some of you may not be in Cincinnati. Some of you may be spending part of the winter in Florida. Some of you may be out of town or have a conflict or something that may come up. So we've enhanced our technology. We've worked to our studio environment here to be able to stay connected, truly meet you where you are. We also record all the sessions. We put them online so that you can have access to them. We hope you never miss one, but if you do, you can go back and look at it. And if you've been to a session and you missed an idea, guess what? You can go back out and look at it as well. So that's the online platform. So you might be sitting outside with the mountain in the background and just being relaxed and enjoying and being able to participate and engage with us in the breakouts and in the sessions to be able to really stay connected. All right, so let me go to another poll. So we talked about, are you at the beginning, the middle, the end? Where are you on your succession journey? So think about, are you 10 years out? Are you 5 years out? 3 years out? You need it as soon as possible. Should have started yesterday. Oops, I forgot to get going. So Lisa, go ahead and hit the poll. Ah. All right. And the messages that we have are relevant for all of those different time plans. We usually say if you're in that 2 to 10 year window, that's probably an ideal time. If I think about the last session, there were some companies that were right up on it. They were ready to get transitioning and moving forward. They had a sense of urgency, out of desire, out of need. And then we had one family that was just grateful. They said, we're about 10 years out. But what we've gotten out of this experience is we've been able to plan, we've been able to put things in place that are going to be helpful to us, and we've been able to communicate much more effectively. Boom, success. That was a great outcome for that family. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the heart of the program. So this is going to come out in 4 phases, and the phases for our institute we're going to build this around align, discover, empower, and activate. So what is this first piece here when we talk about this idea of aligning? Well, we kind of teed it up in the communication area, but if you think about it, it's about finding a community. And the folks on the call right now, we're part of your community. That's part of what this whole thing is about, is how do you come together with like-minded people, similar experiences, going through the challenges that, maybe you think you're all alone, but guess what? You're not. There are other people who have had, are having, or will have the kinds of experiences that you are going through as well. So part of finding a community is all about cultivating this network. It can be on the advisor side, it can be on the other family businesses that are having similar challenges and decisions. And that idea, we've talked a lot about the whole learning to communicate. We're going to invest a lot of time on increasing effectiveness for communication. This whole idea of conflict, who doesn't have some conflict in their life, and it can be over the most silly things. We see it played out in the with family businesses in on the newspaper or the headlines, and then it also happens certainly behind closed doors. One family used to go out to dinner for their family meetings because they knew if they were out in the public they wouldn't fight. So anyway, whatever your family situation is, and finding that conflict, but we want to teach you skills and some change management practices that'll help you get from point A to point B and all the way to point Z. And then the idea of spending some time gaining consensus. So how do you get aligned on what you want to do, the time frame in which you want to do it, how you want to do it, and so just even getting that foundational kind of conversation going might be the first time for some families that they've ever really talked about it and introduced these ideas. And now the G2s are grown up enough that they are ready to be at the table, and they have the seat, now they have the voice as well. All right, so that's what alignment looks like. Our next phase of the program, and these go out across the 12 sessions, is about governance. Discover, and first getting into governance. So we want you to discover some new things, some new skills, some new ideas. The governance side is about how do you do a family meeting. If you're not already doing family meetings, which a lot of our participants are not, setting up family meetings, what does the rigor look like, how frequent, who should be at the table, charters and policies. We spend a lot of time talking about a family charter, who can work in the business, who can't work in the business, what do you have to do before you can be considered to come back in the business, how do you make decisions, and how do you learn to make decisions together. We want to spend time in this discovery process about building your team. Who are the key players that need to be by your side? Who needs to be at the table with you? Who are your go-to people that you can count on? And one of the parts about building that team is also who's got experience and knowledge in the category where you are, especially around family businesses. Part of that team is also, could be a board of advisors, it could be a round table, which is peer group. So there are a lot of ways to think about team, and we'll explore and expose you to a number of those. Part of Discover is educating shareholders, digging into the mechanics of a transition. What are the needed agreements? How do I put this together? What are the kind of concepts and ideas? What matters, what doesn't matter, what's really critical? And in these times of change where tax laws are changing and we don't quite know what's going to happen relative to capital gains and stepped up values and all that, there's a lot to educate people on through this process. And how do you do the very best thing you can for your family and for what you want and the outcome you seek. And then assessing the readiness. This is partly about assessing the readiness of the G1, being ready to go. Some are already ready, some haven't thought about it, some are never ready, and how do you get some dialogue around that? And then what about the G2s? Are they ready? Do they need some additional exposure, some training? Are there some other programs or institutes that would be helpful? In some cases, people have even hired an executive coach. So that's what our Discover series will be. The next part of the program is about Empower. And creating redundancy in a business maybe sounds like a safety kind of thing. You know, an airplane, you certainly want to have redundancy created in. But in a business, think about it. What are the critical people and the processes that are part of your redundant system that if for some reason you didn't come to work tomorrow, who steps in, who steps up, they grab the president's book, and they're able to continue to operate the business. You know, unusual and unexpected things can happen. I tell a lot of stories about my own family. My oldest brother at the age of 55 had a traumatic head injury and was gone within a week. Unexpected, age of 55, certainly thought he'd be there forever. And so what's the plan and what's the fallback? Fortunately, they had some things in place, but they didn't have everything in place, and that redundancy would have been really valuable. It could be having a board in place, and so when you think about just whatever your succession plan is, and who could step in at a moment's notice, whether you were ill, you just went on an extended sabbatical, or something more traumatic happened. We want to spend time building value. That's where that value tool of figuring out how do you drive company value and becoming aware of what are some of the detractors of your company value that can be real watch-outs for you. Get a game plan. You know, how do you make sure you understand your priorities? You know, I think about it as a multi-year business plan. Sometimes strategic plan sounds terribly overwhelming, but a multi-year business plan, which I would bet most of you could write 70 to 80% of right now because it's in your head, but this is partly about spending the time to put it down in writing so others can have that plan as well. Then, as you get closer to the idea of making a deal, now we're not going to transact it, we're just going to be talking about how would you do it, you know, what are the aspects of making that deal, what would you need to know, because this is probably the largest financial decision that you'll make in your lifetime, and we want it to be a great one. And then final step in this process, take ownership. Where to from here? What's next? Now you're equipped to take action. We've gone through the processes, the steps, the 10 best practices, and all the abundance of other things. So we're going to take a little time in the last session and celebrate. It'll be a time to come together in person, and our sponsors will be there, and our presenters as much as possible. We'll have a big party. Fingers crossed that we'll be able to come together in a large group setting at that time. That'll be in June, and then you'll be ready to think about the final phase, which is all about you. This is all about activating your plan. So you've learned all this, you've gotten this wisdom from other families, you've gotten this wisdom from our presenters, from the materials, you've got your president's book, you've thought about your time frame, and now it's up to you. Are you ready to take that next step forward? Is now the time? Do you want to delay a little bit? Do you want to sit on it some? It's all about you. This is the idea. This is all about you. And you might execute your succession plan with help or without help. There are professional consultants that you can find on our professional services registry. That's not work that we do ourselves. We're in the nurture and educate business, but we have lots of folks who are supporters and partners who are in that world and in that field that can be very helpful and very beneficial to you. So, whew, that's a lot. That's 12 sessions. That's a lot of material. That's a lot about coming together, but you can see how these phases all can happen. So with that much information, I want to reiterate, all of this is going to get recorded, just like today. It'll be online. It'll be available to you. You can tap into it as you need to. You can sit with one of your key partners. And this, by the way, I see somebody, I think, sometimes taking a picture of a screen. We'll be sending this presentation out today after we wrap up, so you'll be able to share it with others. And that's the same thing with these recordings. You'll be able to sit with other members in your business, or maybe you want to sit with a family member who missed a session and be able to take them through it. But the information is available to you, all 12 sessions, live and recorded. 8 will be virtual, as we mentioned, coming out of the studio. 4 will be in person. We'll still record those so you can have information there. But the rest of the time, you know, all these sessions, you'll be spending a lot of time in your families and also in our generational breakouts. Now, the generational breakouts, or any of the breakouts, even when we break out today, We're not going to record those. We want you to be able to have open, honest, candid conversations, say the thing that you hope will never end up on the headline, and there'll be no camera or no recording there. That's part of the safe haven. That's part of the confidentiality, that you can have those kinds of conversations. And if you ever have a concern about anything, let us know. We can help take care of it. That's what edit keys are for, and really be able to balance that aspect. All right, so the conversations we want you to be having in these breakouts are really open and honest, and hopefully that will stir up some new thoughts for you as you go. Okay, so that's going to be housed online. You'll be able to have access to it for as long as you need it, which is a really nice gift. We never used to do that, by the way. So when we think about how this program has been enhanced over time, that's a big part of an advancement, to be able to capture that material, because goodness knows sometimes we just have to get up and walk away from our desk and we may have missed a thought. So we're delighted to be able to have that available to you. All right, so the NGI in-session persons, NGI in-person sessions. This is where it's a great opportunity to come together and connect and be with each other. Sometimes you'll be at a family table, sometimes you'll be at a generational table. It's nice because it mixes it up, and you get to meet different people. These will all be taking place at the Hilton Garden Inn in Midtown Cincinnati. It's near Red Bank and Madison Roads, for those of you who are local. One of our families a couple years ago, we were in the in-person zone, and they said, you know, I learned a tremendous amount from this program. I learned a lot about tax and law. I learned a lot about communication. I learned a lot about readiness. But the thing that I considered most valuable and made the whole thing worthwhile was the relationships I built, and particularly with this one other family. And by then they'd already connected. They were going out to dinner together, and they were, I suspect, lifelong friends and associates. So that's part of the reason the in-person aspect is so valuable to us. And we hope everybody will be able to come to those in-person sessions, but if you can't, if it's impossible, if something comes up, we'll find a way to keep you connected, and to be able to put you into a breakout room, so you can stay connected, participate, and engage. But I just want to make it really strong as much as possible. We want you to come together. That's a huge value, and why we think the hybrid blend of this program is so important to us. It's an all-in kind of thing. All right, so just to recap, 4 of the sessions in person, 8 of the sessions virtual, and so you'll be able to work those just from your office, your home, or wherever you are. All right, we're going to go to a breakout session here, and let me just kind of set this up. We're going to let you break out for 15 minutes in some small groups. We're going to have a moderator from the Garion Center, and who will be helping, or one of our sponsors, I know, is going to be doing that as well. The first video we're going to show you is a gentleman, Doug Sayer, and I want you to listen to his comments, and then these are the questions, and we'll bring them back to you to stir up. Are you ready to accept a change in responsibilities? There's your G1 or G2. Big question. And does your G1 or G2 have a shared understanding for how you will advance your transition plan? So I'll kind of plant that seed for you to listen to the video, and then there's a second video we're going to show you, and we'll have breakout group on this topic as well. Discuss Krista Mahan's comments. Do you dedicate time to openly and honestly discuss the inevitable conflicts or obstacles that stand between you and your goals? Big, heavy topic, really important, very significant. If you have any questions, or if you have any technical issues as we go first through the videos and then into the breakouts, put them in the chat room. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what's either in your way, so we can make this an optimal experience for you as well. All right, so here we go, and we're going to start with this first video. Doug Sayer of Allied Technical Services. And I must say, going into this, Doug was a little skeptical coming into the Next Generation Institute, and he describes himself exactly that way, so you'll hear his story. It might resonate with a few of you. All right, let's go to video.
I was skeptical, more skeptical. I've had so many companies, vendors, gurus, say we can help, and they usually I knew more than they did. This program is a logical progression. It makes sense. It's a great way in my opinion, to line out this type of a program, and for all the parties to accept the change in responsibilities and understand the change in responsibilities, and more importantly. I don't think anybody can instantly become, my dad sold me my business and now I'm in charge. That's not going to work. So it's helped me help them, and it's also helped me understand their viewpoints as well. There's a lot involved here, and I want to do it right. Not only do I've actually bought businesses, but not like this. This is my business. The other business I bought, I was just taking them off somebody's hands. This is different. This is keeping my business going, and it's not the same.
I think he says it well. It's my business. It's not the same. And for those who have started up businesses or even inherited them, this is like your baby. So it's very important and it's very personal, without question. All right, let me tee up our next speaker. It's Krista Mahan, and she's with Riverside Electric. She's a second-generation player, and her big topic was all around communication. We give great credit to Krista and her dad. They worked really hard to communicate, and you're going to hear her talk about what they've put in place, and we consider it a best practice, and you'll hear another guest speaker at another time talk about this as well. But remember, communication being the number one issue about communication and trust, how to be healthy, how to be successful to move a business forward. Here we go with Krista.
One great thing that we've came out of this is our weekly Wednesday meetings. So Dad and I have a commitment to meet every Wednesday. We eat lunch in a quiet room and we talk about new business and then also our homeworks for and goals for NGI. So it's been a godsend, that communication line. And sometimes we have to change the times on Wednesdays, but we haven't missed a date unless I'm out of town or he's out of town. So, and we usually try to get it on Tuesday or Thursday then or something. So these weekly meetings have been amazing for us to communicate the lines of communication. Also, the having the plan and the steps laid out for us. Yeah, we might be at one, but just to know what questions to ask and say, okay, we need help with that, or hey, at least we have a game plan to know how to get there. We might not have it figured out, but it's laid out for us to be able to get there.
Powerful comments from Krista. And just to share a little bit, Krista had tried to get into our program a couple years ago, but her dad was out of town part of the time. They couldn't figure out how to bring it together so they could show up in person for all the sessions. The 2021 virtual program turned out to be perfect for them. And in fact, instead of Krista pushing, her dad actually reached out to her and said, we need to do this. And you can see the outcome for her that came out of it. All right, well, that's the tee up for the breakouts. Let me go back to the questions. This is what we would like you to discuss. From Doug's comments, you can talk about skepticism if you want. You can talk about the readiness and shared understanding and plan. From Krista's comments, you might want to talk about communication. You know, what might you think about on how you could improve, or I can't even imagine meeting once a week with my family members. What might that be like? So I'm going to leave it to you to be able to have the conversation you need to have in the breakouts. And we'll see you back in 15 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone, from the breakout session, and hopefully you've had some really great, robust conversation. So what is the one thing that you heard today? What's your one key takeaway from the breakout, or that you heard prior to the breakout that was really meaningful to you? If you'll put that in the chat box, Lisa's going to pick it up and share it back out. I always feel this is the moment where you have the Jeopardy music come in. Maybe it resonated with you. Oh, this all sounds way easier than I ever thought it would be. Or maybe it's a thought like, oh my gosh, there are other people like me who also need help in transitioning. Absolutely. Yeah. All true, all very impactful. And I think those are really great observations and very personal observations, so up close and personal, as we say. But wonderful to be able to articulate those, and those are some of the key reasons why this might just be the perfect program for you, and it might be the right time for it. Just encouraging people to be more open, transparent, and be able to create a lot of clarity. We find oftentimes, people haven't shared even the financials in their business, and this is a great opportunity to start opening up books, opening up the idea around succession plan, thinking about when people want to retire or move to that next act in life. People don't retire anymore, we rewire. I think that's how it goes. This is my third act, so what can I say about that? All right, any others, Lisa, or should we go ahead and talk about some of the details? All right, very good. All right, so this is a little bit more, so now we're in the nuts and bolts. You're curious enough to say this sounds like an interesting program, so when is it, where is it, how does it work? So the dates and the venue are here on the screen. We're going to start in January, so it's a great way to come into a new year, fresh idea, take a break around the holidays if your business allows for you to do that. I know some of you may be in businesses where the holidays are your busiest time, so maybe your reprieve is that first week of January. But we'll start on January 11th, and these are the virtual session dates, the 11th. Then we'll move, we've got 2 in February, 1 in March, 2 in April, 2 in May, and those are the 8 to 10 a.m. virtual sessions that, as we mentioned, we'll do from the studio. You'll be at your computer. We'll mix you up and break you out and put you in different breakout groups, all virtually done, and so that's why it's important to be at your own computer. And then we mentioned the 4 in-person session dates, and those will start at 8 in the morning, and they'll go through 1 o'clock. We'll have a continental breakfast to start the day. We'll have a full lunch, and you'll have meetings over lunch. That'll be a key part of summarizing what you heard in the session, because those 4-hour blocks of time, you can imagine, we can dig in that much deeper. We'll get into that many more topics. We'll have more presenters and guest speakers, and then we'll have that lunchtime to be really able to dig in. Some of our sessions, I can recall at 1 o'clock, you're like pushing people out the door, and it's like, okay, you guys, it's time to go home, go back to your office, because those can be really rich conversation times. Now, that last session of the in-person ones, though, that June 14th, is that celebration session we mentioned, and that'll be from 1 to 6:30 p.m. And so that's the opportunity for you to come there. Now, you can see we're having this at a hotel, so anybody who's out of town, so we have companies that are, the whole family's out of town, or we have a member or two that are out of town, can stay right there for the in-person sessions and be able to participate and be at a really convenient location. And we thought Midtown was a good location for us in the Cincinnati market. Easy to get to, easy on off, and very accessible to the program. All right, so those are the dates and the times and the location. All right, now what about the investment? Because this is an investment. And it's not an investment because it's such a huge amount of money, but it's an investment and a commitment of your personal time, of your energy, and it's a real commitment to say we're invested to learn this material, to show up, to participate, and to engage. So if you're a core member of the Gehring Center already, the initial investment and who participates, it's 1 first generation, 1 G spouse is included, so that we encourage the spouse to attend whether they're in the business or not in the business, and 1 G2. Now, the numbers that you see here on the slide right now, we have a price increase going in place for 2022, and so it's going to be $7,500 for the 2022 session. If you have an additional G1 or G2, it's $2,500 of additional price. That's stayed the same as it has been in the past. If you're a non-member, the fee is a little bit higher, it's $9,000, but you know what? If you join as a member, guess what? You'll save more than the difference between the two. It might be thought about that way, because we really want you to join and be a member of the community, because there's something much bigger than just NGI. This is impactful and important and significant, but this can lead to so many other things in the community and the connection of the Gehring Center. The thing about this, we're going to target 20 family businesses. We'll see that'll be the max number that we think is appropriate to handle. We may have a smaller number than that. We'll see how this plays out. But at this point in time, and I apologize, this sounds kind of salesy and smarmy, it just happens to be where we are on the calendar. But if you make the decision before the end of the month to sign up, we're going to honor the pricing that we've had in 2021. So for members, that would be a savings of $1,500. For non-members, it's a savings of $2,000. If you're interested at all, don't let this don't let this get in your way. Please contact us and talk to us, and we'll give you some contact information here at the end of the session. You already know how to reach us. You registered and you showed up here. But if you're interested at all in participating and engaging, start talking to us, and we'll work our way through the pricing. The pricing is effective October 1st, but let's get a conversation going before then. So we'll give you those details around pricing. Again, we're trying to make sure that this is a really rich and full program so that the return on your investment of dollars, but most importantly, the return on your investment of time, it's a great return and a great ratio for you. All right, well, let me open it up for some Q&A at that point. That may have stimulated some thoughts about both location, venue, dates, pricing, or anything else that we've talked about today. We've had as many as 20 one time a few years ago. We're typically more in the 12, right around 12, 13 families. And sometimes we've had small families. It might just be a dad and a daughter, or a mom and a son, or aunt and a nephew. We've had some very small families, but that is the family business, and that is the transition. The business might be much bigger, but that is the personal transition. And we have had a few families that have brought as many as 10 people to the table. Happened to be a cousin consortium, as we talk about it, where 3 brothers were business partners, and they had family members from each one of their families, and there might have been an extra marriage or 2 in there as well. So we might have had some in-laws, some outlaws, some steps, and everything else. We had to get an extra large table in the middle of the room to be able to host that group. And I think we had some extra facilitation at different times when we have a very large group. So we do see it go across the board. It's relevant no matter what. The materials can fit any size, as we talked about, and so it doesn't really matter what the size of your family is. We can accommodate that. Typically, we handle it in with the spouse of the G1, but it's something we would be willing to talk about. Lisa, can you remind me how we've done that in the past? Yeah. Now. Yeah. Yeah, and we recognize sometimes there's not a G1 spouse. We all have different lives, or not a G1 spouse who's able to attend or interested to attend. So we acknowledge that that's the case as well. Okay. David Miller's probably here. Would you like to talk about that, David? Come off of mute. Yeah. Yeah. And And I'm sure when David gives you a follow-up, he'll talk about everything from the principals course, which is a great overview of all the things that we do at the Gehring Center, beyond the Next Generation Institute. And I'm sure he'll also mention that we would have you take a membership alignment profile regardless of whether you take this institute or not. It's a best practice, and we encourage you to do that in your first year of membership to enhance the full value of being part of our community. Great question. Thank you. Thanks, David. Yeah. Well, it's always a great question, because sometimes we have family members that are, people think about only the family members that are in the business, that are actively working in the business. But sometimes we recognize that it's important because there may be shareholders who are not working in the business, but are impactful to the business. We encourage you to think about including those folks. We oftentimes find where maybe it's an in-law that's working in the business, and the G2s are outside of the business. So again, you might want to have somebody back in to have that exposure and that opportunity. We had one family where the dad was the leader in the organization. He was actually a G2, if you will. The grandparents had started the business, but he was now the current CEO. But the son-in-law was operating and working in the business. The daughter was outside of the business as a lawyer, but was legal counsel to the business. So we do see those kinds of opportunities where somebody's still affiliated with the business in some way or another, and it's a really helpful to have them at the table with you. On occasion also, we have the experience where there's a professional manager who's not related to the business. So they're an employee, usually not an owner, but they're impactful. They might be a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer. We had a situation this past year where somebody was in the business because they had, the two businesses had merged, and they were now really the chief operating officer. So non-family, but very impactful and important to have at the table. And so we made sure that both they were very included, had their perspectives heard, and we took the time to address what are some of the nuances about being in a family business when you're not family. So you really think about, who are your key stakeholders that are really either significant decision makers or have a real vested interest in what happens in the family business. So think broader. If in doubt, think about adding that person. And we're happy to talk to you in your own personal situation, see who you're thinking about, and then provide some advice and counsel on a one-on-one basis of like, yeah, that really makes sense, or yeah, maybe not this time. Maybe that would be part of a council that you would have outside of this program where you'd have the extended family together. So we're happy to look at your personal situation, meet you where you are, and talk through what would be optimal for you. All right, very good. Okay, so this is about what's next. What we encourage you to do at this time, have a great conversation with your family. For those who were on the call, maybe there's some family members who are not on this call today. You'll get the recording, so you could sit down and talk through some of the key things that we've shared with you. But just have a conversation. What do you think about this? Is this the right program? Is this the right time? Are we ready to make this commitment? It's an invaluable commitment, and if you ever want to talk to another family that's been through it, talk to some of our family guides, talk to those of us at the Gehring Center. We're happy to connect and introduce you to others so they can share their own experience. You heard Doug's story, you heard Krista's story, game changers for both of those folks. So with 264 families that have gone through this, I can be rest assured we could find somebody who's probably similar to you that would be willing to share what it's meant to them to be able to be part of this. The recording and the flyer will be sent out via email, so there'll be a link to the recording, and there'll be a flyer with all the information that we shared with you about the details, the hotel, the dates, the times, and also the pricing. If you want to register, either, as David said, register as a member, or if you're not currently a member, we'd love to have you as part of the Gehring Center community. We have just shy of 400 core members right now. We also have associate members who are service providers to our membership, who are also experts and provide a lot of additional support and wisdom to our organization, and then corporate partners who you met a few of today. virtually. So feel free to go out on our website and register. There's a lot of information out there. And then, a phone call always works. So we're happy to respond to you via phone. And if you want to have a meeting in person, certainly happy to come out to your location and have that discussion, or via Zoom or conference call or smoke signals or whatever it might be. If you're ready to go forward, we'd also encourage you, whether you're a current member and you haven't done the membership alignment profile, or you're thinking about being a new member and you're ready to get that going, that's something that's we can turn it around very quickly, but it may take you a little time to think about who you would like to have take that profile, how you'd want to set it up in your company and position it in a way that's optimal, most meaningful for you and for the participants, but that will give us a head start. It's already September 22nd. It's amazing how late it is in the year. It's hard to think about how time has gotten this late, but it's a wonderful opportunity in the program, out of the program. It's great information to be able to get that membership alignment and see where you are on the 10 best practices. All right, so those are the next steps. The final step for me today is to thank our corporate partners, the folks from McGowan Brabender, PNC Bank, Johnson Investment Council, and our friends here at KPG Creative. I want to say a special thank you to all of you who participated with us today and engaged in the breakouts. We are open for business, so if you want to contact us directly, if somebody wants to stay on even at the moment, we'll take a moment here as people are signing off and going out to their day. Please be careful out there, be safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Garion Center event and hopefully in the Next Generation Institute starting in January. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.